America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by New Home St. Mary's. Not here? Okay. Roll call, please.
Sabers. Here. Rice. Here. Dosher. Here. McCardle. Here. Barrington. Here. Allen. Here. Sharks. Smith.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Approval of consent agenda items. Items referring to consent agenda may be removed by a council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to see removed? Okay. Discussion. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address any of these? Nobody? Okay. Roll call, please.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor, members of the city council, an item that's not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken this time. You're already up here.
I am. How are you doing tonight? Okay, Sonia Vanderdick from Mitchell Township. I'm handing out, it's from Children's Health Defense Fund. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he runs that, and it's a notice to employers, universities, and other institutions about mandating COVID masks, vaccines, and and tests, excuse me. And why you need to see this is because it has to do with emergency use authorization law. And what does that mean? It means emergency use authorization law says that when you are dealing with an experimental device, such as what the masks, the shots, and the testing are, that you have to give informed consent. So what does informed consent mean? That means everybody needs to know, first of all, what are the risks and benefits of the shot, the mask, or the testing, and that you have to be able to say yes or no. Well, how does that relate to what I want to talk about tonight? Well, it relates to, first of all, what happened last week at the school. Okay? That was illegal, what they did. To mandate the mask actually is emergency use authorization. Parents are not given informed consent. And the same thing I'm warning for you guys, because this will come here. You will be presented with pressure from whoever it be to mandate masks, the shots, and the testing. I'm just guaranteeing you this is going to happen, because a year ago, we were talking about all of this, and people are like, oh, that's conspiracy theorists. No, it's not. It's conspiracy, but it's not a theory. So how is this related to all this? Okay, so it came to my attention last week, and you know, Mayor, I emailed you, that the city is going to give $200 to each employee that is going to take the shot. Well, that sounds like to me a little coercive. And why do I say coercive? Because when you're dealing with an experimental device, such as the masks, the testing, and the shot, you have to be given full consent. Well, what's the problem with that? Because the narrative is safe and effective. It is not safe and effective if it's an experiment, okay? So my question to you is, if this money is coming from the insurance plan that the employees paid in, then you're discriminating against those employees that do not wish to get the shot, and you're telling them, sorry, because you don't want to taste this experimental gene therapy shot, that you don't get the $200. So I think you need to seriously be thinking about, like, this is not right, and just because other people are doing it doesn't make it right. I mean, we could use that for a lot of other things, but you also need to know, because there are risks, there's been 13,911 people that have died, and this is a direct result of the shot. This is on the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System that anybody can look at. Over 650,000 adverse reports, okay? We're saying 1 to 10% of those. So here, you have, as a body here of the City Council, encouraging people to get a shot that is experimental, and people don't realize the risks, okay? So I want you to look through that information. I want you to remind yourself, when this comes up and Avera and Sanford and whoever else is pressuring you, you need to go back to the law. So thank you so much for your time. I know you guys have a lot to do.
Thank you.
Well, I'll try it again, huh? Reed Bender. All right. So the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is coming up. I haven't felt this sick to my stomach since 2001. What a disgrace. Have you talked to the veterans lately? Our government has lost all credibility at home and abroad. They just gave Afghanistan back to the Taliban. Thousands will die. That means America lost. The Taliban already owned that country, and during the self-inflicted chaos, we brought out 120,000 people. Relatively few of them were Americans, and we left the rest behind. It's a disgrace. The government doesn't care about us. In a terrorist state run by the Taliban, do you think one radical made it through? Speaking of suicide bombers, 13 dead, 18 wounded, a couple hundred others killed or wounded. In retaliation, apparently we droned a father and a few kids in a car. Our government will start paying ransoms in the form of aid to the Taliban. Giving aid to the enemy is treason by definition. Yet nobody is held accountable. There's no way to justify this, yet the media tries. And I could go on and on. And would you send your kid into the military these days? About 9 months ago, I came in here and told you that I don't trust you, not because of you, but because you are the ones that implement and enforce these laws and regulations that rain down on us through an incompetent gods from Washington. You compel people to comply, $200 for a vaccination, higher insurance premiums if you don't. Then it's, then what? Is it you're fired if you don't take it? Or what? Do you start sending your gang enforcers out to drag people out if they don't comply? I'm sure you will. I have no doubt about it. So I trust the science when I see an ultrasound that clearly shows me a baby and what it looks like inside the womb, because I can see it with my eyes. I don't trust the science or the medical industrial complex that said it's not a baby. I don't trust those unethical scientists that take federal aid to perform ghastly experiments on aborted fetal body parts. I don't trust doctors that say boys can be girls and there'll be no consequences for chopping off your junk. I don't trust doctors that started the opioid crisis. Long-term side effects of RNA vaccines are not clear. The science is not settled. I don't trust a government that creates a virus in a lab and tells me they have the cure. If I don't take their cure, they will punish me, and I don't trust a media full of censorship. History teaches us everything we need to know. 2020 is behind us, and apparently so is the United States' greatness. In this, it's the blind being led by a pedophile Alzheimer patient that hands out trillions instead of candy, and you will all follow him to the destruction of this republic. Joe Biden is a symbol of the vast bureaucracy riddled with incompetence and fraud. It's clear the government doesn't work for us. Masks are not just theater, they are a symbol of obedience and so much more. I don't fear the Taliban, I fear my own government for reasons too numerous to mention. And I fear for the future of our kids. There will be more mandates that come, there will be more variants that come, and they will blame people like me, the unvaccinated. My only question to you is, where do you draw the line in the sand? And at what point will you leaders in this community decide to stand up for the rights of the individuals here in this community? Or will you be like Jim Acosta and start calling us the Taliban too? Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Mr. Greenway.
Doug Greenway, Corn Palace Director. I just wanted to go before the council and publicly thank those that helped our Corn Palace Festival for 2021 be a success. We were excited to hold the festival with good numbers. Our concerts were well attended. Our vendors were happy with their sales on the street, and our ridership on the midway rides was good, back to normal levels between 2014 and 2019. We were right. We were above 3 of those years and below 2 of those years. So right back kind of where we had been for several years. So. The festival is a lot of work for the city. I appreciate the support from the council, but most importantly from the city staff. When you think about all the groups that have to pull together, and they always do, it's amazing to me. Public Works, it includes, street and sanitation, the traffic folks, Parks and Recs that deliver all the bleachers and the picnic tables and set up. I guess traffic department too. Josh was amazing. He's new too, and just as I was, this is my first festival. So I just want to publicly thank the city staff that did so much and all the volunteers that helped with the festival. And we'll have our board. We'll see all that wrap up information next week when we meet. So I didn't know if there's any questions from the council at this time regarding the festival. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council?
Yeah, Mayor, if I could, I just wanted to, let the council know that the state did release their updated proposed rules for medical cannabis. Based on that, we'll have some amendments to the ordinance that we adopted earlier this year, probably at the next city council meeting. I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar just to know that it's coming, and we're going to be in a bit of a time crunch to get that adopted and into place before the state's rules would take effect. So looks like it's just going to be some relatively minor cleanup stuff, but I'll have to take a further look at the new proposal that they put out. That was just released Friday, and I haven't been able to work my way through the whole thing yet. So.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mr. Johnson? Anybody else wish to address council? Okay, Board of Adjustment, entertain a motion for City Council recess to the Board of Adjustment. Second. Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing an action on application for John Lisa Mantel. John Lisa Mantel applied for a front yard variance of 21 feet versus 25 feet as required for construction of a house addition at 1206 West Hanson, legally described as Lot 9, Western Heights Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Said property is R3, medium density. Mr. Jengus.
Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this 4-2 with one absent. There was a letter for and a letter against it. Discussion during it is the applicant can't get a contractor there, so she requested it will be a 10-foot addition. She could go the 7 feet, which would make it under the 25 feet for the setup, the setback. She really needs about 23 feet instead of the 21, but if a contractor does come and she needs that extra little wiggle room, she'll have that. The addition would be to put on so that she can put a roof over her entryway. Can you pull up the pictures, please, the photos? Yeah. It sticks out just a little bit on the south side of the house there. It's about where the sidewalk would be where that is. It would encompass then the doorway for them. The neighbor to the east had the concern that they won't be able to see out their driveway. She presented photos to the Planning Commission that showed where that would be and took a photo, and there didn't seem to be any issues from that. The applicant is here if you have any questions for her at all.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing an action on an application for Tamisha Enfield. Tamisha Enfield has applied for a conditional use permit to operate a family residential daycare center at her home at 1318 West Ash. Legally describes lots 7 and 8, block 6, Potter's Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Said real property is zoned R2, single family.
Planning Commission recommended approval of this 6-0 with one absent with the 3 condition that it's non-transferable, the business ceases to exist for 6 months, a new application, and must pass a fire inspection. I know that Shannon Sandoval was going over to meet with her last week. I don't know how that ended up going. There was one letter for, one letter against, and one was neither for or against. His concerns were that he just wanted to make sure that it was done by 5:30 at night, no weekends, and there wouldn't be any big signage out there. Ordinance allows a 2 square foot sign attached to the property. There was no concerns from Planning Commission for this.
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing an action on application for Boyd Reinitz, tabled to 9/2021.
Motion to table. Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing an action on application for Faith Missionary Church, tabled to 9/2021.
Move to table. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? Well, go ahead.
What are they, and I drove by there and looked, what are they trying to build, or what's the purpose of this?
They would like to put an addition on what would be the southwest corner of the church. It would be for a couple classrooms and a couple bathrooms.
It goes right up to the alley.
It's 20 feet from the alley, from the south side, but it crosses a parcel line on the east-west side. So Planning Commission tabled it because one parcel is owned by one entity of the church and the other parcel is owned by a different entity. So it's dual ownership. I did get this afternoon, a warranty deed that was filed today, so that'll be same ownership. So it cleans that up, even though it was the same ownership, just a different name on it. And then parking was another concern, so they were going to bring back a better photo of what they were going to do for plan for parking.
Okay, I was just
Yep.
curious, I drove by and kind of couldn't really.
They own pretty much that whole block.
Okay, further discussion?
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action set the date Board of Adjustment hearing 9/20/21. Brooke Hartman has applied for conditional use permit to operate a family residential daycare center at her home at 317 East 4th, legally described as Lot 2, Block 27, original addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Said property is R2.
Move to set the date.
Motion by Mr. Rice,
Second.
second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 9/20/21. Stacy Natinga has applied for a rear yard variance of 0 feet versus 3 feet as required for construction of a garage addition at 204 West 11th, legally described as, Lot 11, Block 29, Capital Edition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Said real property is zoned R2, single family.
Set the date.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 9/20/21. George Morgan has applied for side yard variance of 0 feet versus 3 feet as required for enclosing an existing non-conforming carport at 414 North Davison Street, legally described as Lot 6A, and west half of Lot 5A, Block 30, Cooley and Guernsey Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Said real property is owned R2, single family.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Reconvene City Council. Entertain a motion for adjustment to adjourn City Council, reconvene regular session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearings and actions on following alcohol license applications. On the application, Corn Palace Shrine Club for a special event liquor license located at the Masonic Temple for September 11th, 2021 for a wedding.
Mayor and Council, Chief Coster, Police Department, we have no concerns on this application and recommend approval.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. On application, Corn Palace Shrine Club for a special event liquor license located at the Masonic Temple for September 18th, 2021 for a wedding.
Mayor and Council, Chief Coster, we have no concerns of this and recommend approval as well.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. On application, Corn Palace, Palace City Lions for a special event liquor license located at DW Sherman Center for September 24th, 2021 for the DW Alumni Blue and White Event.
Mayor and Council, we also recommend approval of this with no concerns.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Award bid for sidewalk and curb gutter project for SDDOT Utility Project 2021-55.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Joe Schrader, Public Works Director. Bids were opened on August 26, 2021 in City Hall Council Chambers at 1:30. One bid was received by Top Grade Concrete. Bid was submitted for both bid schedules A and B for a total cost of $84,646.40. Staff recommends awarding bid schedules A and B to Top Grade Concrete LLC for $84,646.40.
Will this be for this year, Joe, yet?
Correct. It will be done before, I believe we have the completion date in October.
Thank you.
Move to approve the bid to top-rated concrete.
Motion.
LLC.
Motion by Mr. Rice,
Second.
second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve acceptance of Section 533 grant funds.
Mayor, Council, Jessica Pickett, Community Services Director. This grant application is something we submitted and has now been awarded to us. We usually utilize our old buses and we rotate them out for our nutrition program. Unfortunately, the two that need to be replaced are not in good enough condition to even operate for our nutrition program, so we would send those directly to surplus. They are very expensive to maintain and repair.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion?
So the 32,500 will be a 2022 budget item, and by doing this now, then when that money becomes available,
Correct.
You'll only see the budget amount for the 32,000, which is the city's match.
city's match, right? Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure on that, I understood the timing and that that's okay. So we don't have to spend 32,500 in this fiscal year. Okay.
It'd be for 2022.
Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A/2021-46, Mitchell Municipal Airport Aerial Applicator Agreement.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Joe Schrader, Public Works Director. This agreement is an update to the airport aerial applicator. Your previous one was approved on May 7th, 2018. Updates include specifying that the agreement shall be renewed yearly, clarifying aircraft refueling procedures, updating the fee from $500 to $843.75 for their rental space, and then other miscellaneous contract language. Staff does recommend approval of the agreement.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion?
Yeah, what prompted the update? And I see it's how did $843.75 come to be the number?
It is 15 cents per square foot
Oh, okay.
is how it came about. Another item is with the fueling. It requires that the fueling be done with fuel that is on the airport property. They can no longer bring their own fuel in. So all the fuel will be sold through the airport. And Justin helped out with this agreement, so if there's anything that he wants to add, he can.
I'd just say the only other change was to clarify that it needs to be renewed every year, so.
Okay. Further discussion?
Yep, great.
Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A/2021-47, easement agreement with Northwestern for underground utility. Mr. Schrader, you speaking to?
Mr. Mayor, Council, this is more of just a cleanup item. There was an overhead line there previously that fed electrical service to a building and to lights on the runway. So they are going to bury that line, and when this project started, they found out that there was no easement. So this will put an easement in place for the electrical line. Mike Scherzlich has stated that no improvements will be built over that easement. He recommends approval, and staff recommends approval as well.
This is a line that they were having issues with.
Correct, yep. So the overhead line experienced outages routinely just because of the trees in the area that would brush up on the overhead line. So this will bury that line.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement 8/2021-49, Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund Financial Assistance Agreement and Assurance of Compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act.
These documents need to be approved before we can receive any funds from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. And Mitchell was allocated $2.8 million.
This isn't new money, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, this is completely new?
This is that second round of money that we've been discussing since last
Oh.
year with the new stimulus, but there are criteria on how it can be used. The main thing is, though, you can't even get access to the portal or start any of that process without having the agreements in place. You did something similar before the first allocation of COVID money.
And, okay, as I read part of that, I kind of thought maybe it's new money, but is the date, and I'm on page 245, a period of performance December 31st, 2026, is that the date of which the money would have to be spent?
It
or-
depends. There's been some of the sessions that I've been on that as long as you have it committed to a project that's specified in that time frame, they'll still allow it to be
So it
used
could
if
be
it's
a
committed as
project
part of a larger
10 years,
funding
and
project.
You're paying over that amount of time as long
Well, I don't know if it's 10 years, but you had to have
Any
it
amount.
committed by the end of December 2024, but the spending can take up to 5 years after that.
Okay.
So it's kind of, at least, I don't know how many you've sat in on, but on the ones I've sat in on, they're still giving guidance as long as you have them obligated to a project.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily have to all be spent. We're going to have a council session at a future date to talk about the use of those
Figure it out.
funds. Yeah, we've had some discussions internally, and I would anticipate that we would want to take a similar approach to what we did with the first ones, to try to submit as many uses that are easily allowable through the grant
They're in the
language, and basically replace it with some of our existing funds, and then you can go forward and designate those funds for future capital or whatever you end up deciding, like you did with the first COVID round.
Right. Not create ongoing
Yeah, they have a lot more,
recurring expenses
Yep.
because,
They have a lot of restrictions of what you can use it for. They've said water and sewer utility projects. They've got watershed pilot programs, non-point source pollution control. They do have some wages for emergency responders and first responder personnel, so that might be an easy pass-through of money too. So we'll look at that once we get into the grant.
okay. When I saw that date, I thought that was different. Move to approve agreement 2021-49 Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund Financial Assistance Agreement. Second.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Saban. Further discussion.
I guess I have one additional comment. In addition to these direct allocations that are passed through the state, there is also money being allocated directly to the state, and they've talked about what they're going to do for allowing municipalities, counties, and other entities to apply for those funds towards other projects as well.
That's in addition to that.
That's in addition to this. This is our direct allocation. You'll also,
$5 trillion.
yeah, you'll also hear the state talk about some of their COVID money that they're going to be making available to local entities as well. Those, at the thing we went to at First District, it sounded like some of that's going to be routed through the state revolving loan fund too.
Yeah, on the library side, then we were notified last November, and that's the $15,000 that the library got that we approved last month, and now the state library is coming back saying part of that, we don't know how much and for what yet, but there's another round of money potentially that we can apply for grants.
So when you've heard about infrastructure money, this is the money that they were talking about in the second round of stimulus money.
You got to find places to spend it. We'll give them some.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2021-51 Corn Palace renovation study with Shammer Associates This is the discussion. We've looked at having Schemmer Associates come in and look at the Corn Palace to see what can be done to expand the floor space, to make it more usable for out-of-season events, as well as possibly adding seating. This is the agreement for them to come in and do that study to look at it. So, anything you'd like to add? Mr. Schrader, you want to add anything?
I think you summarized the improvements. The process will include, they'll do data collection, they'll do meetings with people in the community, stakeholders. They'll develop alternatives for us to look at what options we may like to go. They seem like a great group for this project, and I think will give us some good insight on the building and viable options with cost estimates, so we can potentially pick one of those and proceed accordingly if that's what you wish. Stephanie, do you want to touch on? Yep.
I just mentioned to the mayor, we were proposing that this would be paid out of additional revenue received above budget in the entertainment tax fund. You would have to have a future supplemental appropriation hearing just to give the budget authority. Right now, here today, you've collected $567,603, and our budget was $650. We had dropped it down $140,000, not knowing what was going to happen with COVID this year, back when our budgets had to be started in April and May. And so far, it looks like we're going to meet and exceed that. I think you might even have that full amount available with the additional revenue received in 2021 above budget. If not, it might take a little bit from entertainment reserves, but they're sufficient to cover the cost.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Savers.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion?
I was just going to say their schedule does actually look very aggressive. They'll be done in 4 months planned. So I just wanted to note that so everyone knows the time frame.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A/2021-52 Hydro Clean for sewer lining project 2021-12. Mr. Schrader.
This is an agreement we've been working on for a while with HydroClean. We believe during the 2019 event in September when we had the 9-inch rain that our sewer interceptor line, our 24-inch VCP, was exposed. When we were doing improvements, we saw the pipe in the bottom of the creek. So our fear is that if there is another event like that has enough velocity to be moving rocks or those types of things, that there's the potential to puncture a hole in that 24-inch VCP. So we want to get that shored up as soon as possible. We're looking at a PVC liner. HydroClean is one of the few companies that does that work. They will also handle the bypass pumping, which will be a chore of its own since we have a lot of flow coming down that 24-inch pipe. The total cost is estimated to be $103,112, and city staff recommends approval.
And how soon would this start?
Within the month. I believe the agreement says the work could be completed in November.
And do they have to do any road detour or anything on Burr?
Nope, it'll all be handled underneath through the culvert.
Okay.
And then manhole to manhole.
So they'll be on the west side of Burr to do that, or on both sides?
So they will, on the west side, they'll have their pump set up, bypassed around through the culvert under the road. And then their trucks will just be set up between the red line on the east side of the road.
And should this pipe break, you know where the stuff goes.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why we had budgeted 200,000?
This line item is used for additional
Oh, just-
CIPP
okay.
work. Yep,
Okay, it wasn't specific then to just
Correct.
this project. Okay.
correct.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion?
So the bypass pumping costs as much as the lining, so I'm assuming it's in our best interest that they get it done as fast as possible, because the bypass pumping would probably be the highest risk.
Correct.
Okay.
Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing in action to approve resolution R 2021-48 levying business improvement district number 3 as special assessments for 2021-2022.
This is just the annual assessment based on valuations for the bid number 3, which is Main Street. It has to be approved every year by council.
It's nothing new. It's what's been in place. They just, assessments have to be redone. Right?
So are 100% of the people paying?
No, not 100%.
And what happens then, Michelle? What do we do if they do not pay?
At this point, I send out a letter like this time of the year with the new assessments, and I do put the past due on there. When I did that last year, a large portion paid, but still not all of them. And we have not pursued anything beyond that at this point.
We will have to have a discussion with legal on that.
And recall last year that the direction was due to COVID not to be very aggressive on that point. So we really haven't come out of that approach yet.
We have received quite a few questions from council at different times about where the funds are being spent. The Main Street Bid Board has approved 3 different rounds of grants, and you can see those listed above. Just in case you're interested, I also had a copy of some of the before and after, I had an alarm going off. Some of the before and after of the pictures of the bid grants and what they've accomplished on Main Street so far. So on that original sheet, you can see out of $100,570 that has been collected, those are the allocations that they've submitted. $52,000. From the beginning, they've held some back. They were committing to doing some of the features of the Main Street streetscape, especially when we get to 3rd and Main, because they'd be paying for those large planters and those other costs. So you can see they've awarded about half of them that have been collected so far.
Is this, it's been a while since we've reviewed this, but is this a matching grant, theoretically, that the business owner would have part of their money, or at least labor or something, or is it 100%?
I think that they've been doing, I think they just submit for their costs, and then the bid board meets and decides how much of the expense they're going to cover. Because some of them have, I've just seen some of the applications, and some of them are not the full cost being covered by that grant. But I don't know if they've had that established firmly in there. Oh, good. He's right here.
Mr. Buchman, shed some light on it.
I'll jump in a little in the middle of this here, a little unprepared, but Dan Buchelman from Mitchell Main Street and Beyond. I sit as a liaison on the bid board as a non-voting member, so I can offer some information in regards to this. Of course, the first year dollars were collected, we couldn't award any out because the dollars had to come in. The next year we had a formal application process, and as Stephanie mentioned, we've been trying to reserve some money for streetscape improvements, and of course, streetscapes hopefully come in next year, subject to budget and such, but they're setting some money aside for those goals to do bike racks or benches or planters or whatever comes along with those streetscape improvements. As far as the applications that have been coming in, the bid board has not been awarding 100% in any cases. They've been trying to take a measured, careful approach based on who applies and how much they ask for, but also how many dollars are available. The information we've portrayed to people who apply is that obviously you can apply as often as you want. That doesn't mean you'll win every time. That doesn't mean you'll ever win. So far, nearly everyone who's applied has been awarded some funds. We've only had one that was awarded funds that didn't actually use them, and they were returned back to the city and dumped back into the pot.
And a few years ago, we used to have and it seems like we might have used that money in a different project, but we used to have no interest loans for facade. Do we still have that either? Okay, Stephanie, you're shaking.
I think Main Street runs that?
Main Street has a zero-interest loan fund as well. So we have had people that did these projects that also took part in the zero-interest loan fund. We're able to use some grant dollars from the bid, some zero-interest loan dollars, and then some regular bank financing as well to tie together a larger project.
Oh, okay.
So it does help nudge that to a little more affordable level.
And some of that loan was back when we earmarked that, or is this coming from a different, well, you guys' fund?
From what I could tell, when I first got here in 2014, I looked at that, and I think it had been 5 years prior to that before we had even done anything. So it's been 15 years or more before the city has contributed anything towards that.
Okay.
I thought in the finance part, and it wasn't in this budget or in this packet, but the previous packet, there's a Mitchell Main Street and Beyond 42,000 some odd dollar line item that's in there that has been there for,
The $42,000 to Main Street?
yeah. And I can go back, I can find it.
There is
It's
a
in last
fund in the
last
agency
time's
fund
packet.
that has,
And what's that used for? That's been there for,
it's been there prior to us. Yeah.
It's not money that's awarded annually.
no, it hasn't, there hasn't been
Yeah.
any money awarded,
Yeah.
at least since I've been on council that I can think of, but it's $42,000 that's sitting there.
So Dan, you offer them a 0% interest, right?
They can
Is
get,
any of them delinquent?
no. Now, the zero-interest loan fund is capped at $20,000, so that's done in practice by them working with a commercial bank. The commercial bank underwrites the loan, says they'll approve them for the loan, and the bank decides if they want to, if they want to borrow more than $20,000, they're going to get some of that from the bank and some of it from us. The bank decides in what portions. So really, we're working with the commercial banks in town to say they're good borrowers, and the banks are collecting the money and just funneling it back. Really, our dollars are helping bring down their interest rate to a more affordable level.
I think a long time ago. How long has it been sitting here? We put money into a fund for that Main Street, and I think the number was actually 100,000 or something like that, for us to have them be able to borrow at a 0% interest until this got more established, and now that it is, so I think that those funds aren't being used. They probably need to, maybe at some point in time, be shuffled back to the right spot because they're not being touched, because that's what it was there for to
that could
begin
be.
with. And now they don't need our money anymore, so we probably need to.
I do know I had heard that we used to administer that no-interest loan, and then Main Street took that over.
Correct, yep. So, yeah.
That's as much as
And we pulled back some, but we haven't pulled it all back
Okay,
yet.
here
It
it
should
is.
probably be zeroed out.
Mitchell Main Street and Beyond Loan Program, 750104, cash and interest-bearing accounts, $42,154, and it's been there at least for 10 years.
And it's still there.
And it's still there.
Before that.
Was it? And we spent some on something, and that's the remaining amount?
Yeah, we weren't aware of that money at all. In the current group, anyway.
I'm assuming it probably came from general fund at one point. I mean, we'd have to look at that, so it's probably just general fund money that was committed for a project. If that was some of that back and forth on the loan, I don't know. We'd have to look at it.
I can go back in history.
Yep, it was over 100, I know that. I can't remember,
135.
maybe 125 or something like that, but yeah, it was from general fund, and it probably just needs to go.
Well, there's some
Back there.
that maybe could be used for something.
Yeah, so I guess work with the, if you need more money or whatever with the loan, that there's some possibility maybe of that. But if you guys want to research it just a little bit more, and then you guys can discuss it as a committee.
I believe off the top of my head, there's 2 current outstanding zero-interest loans, and there's a third that's being worked on with the bank that hasn't hit our side of things yet, but it is an active loan fund. It's been used for several business improvements in the area along the Main Street corridor. Just for quick points of reference, I know the pictures were up there, but the Cherry Bees building had a new roof put on it as part of the bid district monies that came into play. The Collective received some money for their building improvements. Charlie Shoe Repair, which is Don Curtis now, is in the midst of a project that's really dressing up that place. And then there were some other applicants as well that are pending award of funds right now. So as we move into 2022 with streetscape and other potential Main Street improvements, along with these buildings that have already been done, I think you start to see a strong change. Some of those dollars help fund things that made the buildings much more solid, that allowed the business owners to then capitalize and do more with the building, make them use the space more effectively.
entertain a motion.
We're on 25.
25, yep.
Move to approve 2021-48, levying business improvement District 3.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2021-59, accepting solid waste management program grant from the state of South Dakota for landfill cell number 4 and authorizing mayor to sign all documents. Mr. Schrader.
Mr. Mayor, Council, just a quick background on this project. The city approved a solid waste management program grant on February 1st, 21 to expand the landfill into cell number 4. The grant was for 20% of eligible costs not to exceed $324,000. The resolution before you authorizes the mayor to be the designated representative of the city to do all things on its behalf and to certify and sign payment requests for the landfill cell number 4 project, and staff recommends approval.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion?
The mayor to do all things on the city's behalf.
Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We're adjourned.